Actually, it came 2 minutes ago, but you give me a little grace, I hope. So, how are you doing? What's happening in your life? We have big historical events happening if you're political, if you pay attention, and sometimes even if you don't, you'll know what's going on now. But my question is more personal. How are you doing? What's happening for you? Did you remember my question from yesterday? What are the insights that you are seeking to be open to or discovering? Sorry. I hope that you are doing okay. I hope your life is unfolding in a way that leaves you feeling okay. I always don't always describe it or don't always talk about it, but I do really wish well for everyone. I do. I don't wish anyone harm. And in my work, I hope that every day leads us in an encouragement in our sense of walking with God. I've often said that I don't really think that the biggest struggle we have as human beings is whether God exists. I think there's too much that's overwhelming and unbelievably intricate about the systems of the world to wonder whether there is a first mover or an organizing power behind it all. But mostly the questions of faith, I think, center around, does God care about us? Is God with us? Is God paying attention to what's happening here on the earth? Walter Brueggemann, celebrated Old Testament scholar, Episcopalian, professor in seminary and guest lecturer all over the world in the theology of the Old Testament, says that the Psalter especially invites human beings to be aware that just like in every relationship, you have a partner, and that partner sometimes needs to get shaken, awake, to say, hey, are you paying attention to what's happening here? And it's, I love it. I love the humanity of the image of it, but evidently in the range of ways that we human beings are invited to relate to God and loving God, our love for God is supposed to be lively. It's supposed to be engaging, both engaging God in our lives and allowing God to engage us. Sometimes God has to shake us awake too. That's part of the landscape of relationships, right? You can fall asleep in a relationship and not realize that the relationship itself is at stake. So sometimes I want to pray, God, are you awake? It's time for you to sit up and pay attention to what's going on, God, because I know this isn't the worst of times. I know this isn't the worst of times. I haven't been enlisted at the age of 65 to take up arms, to go out and join a militia to defend the nation against, terrible people. I haven't. But it feels like it's closer than it ever has been in my lifetime. My father-in-law will often tell stories of remembering how in Glasgow as a boy, he was there when the bombing raids began by the Nazis, and he was scurried away by his parents to school out of the main range. But before he left, he watched the bombs fall and their houses destroyed. I haven't experienced anything like that. For me, as a child, what I remember, I didn't know much about it, but boy, it sure did scare me, was the race riots in the 1960s, and I don't know what else to call them. But I remember the picture on the Trentonian, the Trenton Times, showed pictures of Trenton, the streets of Trenton, which was the capital of the state of New Jersey, and the riots had, there were buildings burning, and it was terrible. But I remember the pictures of the National Guard, pigeons on a wire, all equally spread apart, probably 6 feet apart, and they were all fully armed. And they lined the main streets of Trenton, the capital city, to restore order. I have to go back and look at the timing of it and find out what the incidents were that ignited those riots. All I remember is that they were called the race riots, and they were not just in Trenton, they were all over. So, as a child, when I laid myself down to sleep as a 7-year-old, I had those pictures. I saw the pictures of the newspaper, and I was shocked. But that's as close as I've come. So, how are we doing? You know, how are we doing? How are we doing? I watched some of the debate that takes place between the leaders of the Republican Party and the leaders of the Democratic Party, and I'm amazed that with training in debate and eloquent speech, if you listen carefully and you give optimism to the speaker, it's amazing in court. These people trained in oratorial debate, they make their side sound like the only side that's true. So, so it's the season of Epiphany. And when I signed off yesterday, I challenged you in the season of Epiphany to try to mark your openness to learning something new, seeing the light brought to something that you hadn't seen before, something that you just, in discovery. And sure enough, having recommended you to do it, I have to tell you that in the Bible study, which I aired this morning, I started a Bible study on Psalm 1. And I'm working through a commentary to bring some of the historical facts alive and to help set context, depending upon scholars and their work, so that I can then take the scholars' work and present it to us in a way that is accessible, that is helpful. And I have to tell you, I got so excited. I got so incredibly excited about a new, a new discovery. Something that, I work in the religious language all the time. And when you read through the Bible like I've done with classes over the years now, probably 4 or 5 times all the way through the Bible, reading it, listening to it, trying to look and listen for insights so that we can really be a faith that's guided by the book and know the book. I keep running into this thing, Moses especially, throughout the entire life of Moses. He kept saying to people, no matter what else you do, when you move into the land, now that you're out of Egypt, you must obey the law of God. You must obey the law of God. You should meditate on the law of God. The law of God, the law of God. It's always, do not mingle with other nations because they're going to water down your sense of the law of God. And I have to say, I feel like the Sadducees and the Pharisees in the New Testament, when they came to Jesus and they said, come on, boil it down for us, will you? What is the law of God? Now, they said, what's the most important commandment? I think it's the same question. What is the law of God? What is Moses talking about? And Jesus answered pretty quickly to say that the law of God was about love. You should love God, you should love your neighbor, and you should love your neighbor as you would love yourself. That's all great, but it never made a connection for me. The light never came on like it did in reading Psalm 1. Psalm 1 says there are basically 2 pathways in life. There are 2 pathways in life. One is the way of the wicked. Do not walk in the counsel of the wicked, but walk in the ways of the righteous. Now, it sounds very platitudinous, right? It's something you could read, I don't know, on a card, a religious card. Do not walk in the counsel of the wicked, but walk in the ways of the righteous. Now, the commentator on the text said, let me be clear. You need to be clear that in the context of the Hebrew Bible and all of it, wickedness is not a loose word. There is a very definitive meaning of what wickedness is. Wickedness is living with yourself as the center of the only thing you care about. Wickedness, the ways of the wicked, because the law of God, the summation of the law of God is that if you want to, Psalm says, happy are those who walk in the ways of the law of God, who meditate on it day and night. And they go, okay, I'll meditate on it. What am I supposed to meditate on? What is the law of God? The law of God, says the commentator in the book, is that you should live for the welfare and the well-being of the other. For the well-being of the other. When you meditate on the law of God, when you think about what God is requiring us, God is requiring us to live our lives with our neighbor in view and defer to what the neighbor needs. To defer. This is why Jesus becomes the prime example. The absolute pinnacle of the example of the law of God. Jesus fulfilled the law of God because he laid down his life for people who were his enemies. He did not think of self-preservation, but meditating on the law of God, the law of love, the law of living for the other. You see, I get excited about this because this connects back to what I've been trying to say. I've been teaching now for 10 years this mission of God for people of faith. It's rooted in the first conversations between Abram and Sarai, and God in establishing a relationship with those human beings. The Eve and Adam project didn't go well. Cain and Abel didn't go well. The people after Noah's time did not go well. It did not work. And God said, all right, we're going to start with you, Abram and Sarai. And they said, what do you want from us? And God said, this is what I want from you, and this is what I will do for you. What I want you to do is to live every day to be a blessing to the families of the earth, so that you live not first with your own self-interest, but with the interest of the others, yourself included. Jesus made that clear in the Sermon on the Mount, or in the response to the religious leaders. Love your neighbor as yourself. But the call of God, the mission of God, the one who created the universe, has given to us a clue about how to find a happy life. You want a happy life? Well, the saying is, happy wife, happy life. I mean, that's true for men who are married and neglect or ruin their wives' life. Your life will be miserable. That's not what this is talking about. This is saying, you want to have a happy life, you want to have a blessed life, then you live your life seeking to be a blessing to other people. And you will be happy. You will be happy. That's the promise. It's not you'll be happy in the by and by. And then on the other side, if you walk in the counsel of wickedness, And wickedness is not smoking cigarettes, or, I mean, it might be, I guess, in a way, if you think about what I'm going to tell you that wickedness is. Wickedness is to live definitively seeking your own self-interest and others be damned. Wickedness. Take it anywhere you want to go. Take it anywhere you want to go, in any setting or arena of life. And I got so excited about the clarity that came to me. I don't know if it's coming across to you. I don't know. But I am telling you, I get it now. When Moses says you should get up every day, Hebrew, followers of God, in children of Abraham and Sarah, get up every day and meditate on the law of God. Immerse yourself in it. Defend yourself against the ways of wickedness, which would lead you to believe that you can steal what belongs to others, or you can murder another person because you don't want them on the planet anymore. And all of it is about the wickedness of self-centeredness, about self-aggrandizement, about saying that what matters to me is all that matters in the world. This is wickedness. Somebody said money is the source of all evil, and you know the better quote is the love of money. But even further, if you take it into the context of the law of Moses and the law of God in the Bible, you violate the law of God in the love of money, because what do you want the money for? If you love money in order to do for others, that's not evil. But the reason you love money is because of what it can do for you. That's wickedness. That's my my epiphany. I will from now always be able to preach with more clarity, because now I know what it means. I understand. Maybe it's not the definitive meaning of it, but it moves. Someone liked the phrase I said, I don't like religious language unless I know what it means in this world. I need to know what it means. What is the law of God? The law of God, the rule of God, the primary operating principle of the God who made this world is clear in the law of Moses and in the way Joshua interpreted. There's a lot in it that violates the law of God. The murder and the mayhem and the attempts at genocidal extermination of other people. Human beings do often violate the law of God. They murdered Jesus. But the biblical witness is clear. A clear path for a happy, meaningful life worth living is to live a life and taking yourself out of the center and allowing the needs of others to be a driving mission for why you go to work, for why you do what you do. And encased in that, if I haven't excited you enough, is the meaning of the word justice. When we hunger and thirst for justice, it's not an individual relief we seek. Justice is fairness for all. It's not revenge for me. It's not individual. Excuse me. Justice has the whole community in mind. We hunger and thirst for righteousness, justice. The righteousness that the Bible speaks of is living a human life and agreeing to include the needs and the wants and the hurts and the desires of others in our individual efforts. That's the way of the righteous according to the law of God. It's not about perfection. It's about understanding the mission. It's about understanding why we were created and how we operate when we are tuned the best. If you want a car to run smoothly as an automobile to run as smoothly as it possibly can. Put it in the hands of the person who made it. Let them set the timing. Let them tell you about what makes it run rough or what makes it run lean. Put it in the hands of the architect who designed it and let them tune it. That's what Moses is saying to the people of old. It's what Jesus is saying to the people of the first century. And it's what the preachers are preaching when they understand it in the year 2021. I don't know. I had admitted to you before, sometimes this is a one-way conversation, so I don't know if I get you as excited about what I've learned as I am, but I'm just sharing with you. This is where I'm at in this crazy, crazy time, at the unfolding of this pandemic. Live your life and take others into view. Leave off the way of wickedness, which says, me first. All that matters is me. Forget about it. It will lead you to pain and suffering and decay of quality of life. It will. But if you follow in the ways of the righteous, you will be happy. That's my insight. It's a light that came on for me, and it might surprise you that I never knew it before. But I didn't. I've come close to it. So, it's Wednesday. Happy Epiphany. I hope God continues to drag us out of the darkness and shine lights upon us for insight, especially those that lead us to the real meaning of love and happiness in life. God bless you, my friends. I will talk to you tomorrow.